Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got some information coming out regarding NATO to share with you guys. We're going to be talking about this gentleman here on your screen. He is the chair of NATO's military committee. He is Admiral Rob Bauer. So, Rob was speaking at an event just yesterday for the European Policy Center. While he was there, he was discussing the war between Russia and Ukraine and how this war has affected Europe, especially NATO nations. And he also warned business leaders to prepare for a wartime scenario and bring their production lines back home rather than relying on China or Russia. Okay, he also apparently said that instability in global politics could leave businesses at the mercy of foreign governments, especially if a war were to break out. So we did see back towards the beginning of this war, Russia cut off gas to Europe. Europe was definitely suffering in terms of gas. At one point, I know they definitely have recovered for the most part, but still at some point this did happen, and it definitely left Europe in the dark for a little while without supplies coming from Russia. So it looks like the NATO admiral here is warning European nations to start preparing for war, as if war does break out, many supplies could be cut off. Okay, think about China as well. Okay, China holds majority of the world's pharmaceuticals. All right, if a war were to break out, what if China decided to not send pharmaceutical products out of their nation anymore? Okay, that could be a very big deal as well. Imagine so many people that rely on pharmaceuticals. That could be very huge. So I'm going to talk some more about this today and what he's warning about. And then also I have a story to go over that NATO is possibly discussing a potential to strike inside of Russia preemptively. Okay, that they may also start changing their posture, maybe moving to more of a proactive alliance versus a defensive alliance. That's very big as well. They were apparently discussing that. And could NATO launch a preemptive strike onto Russia, or would they stick to being a defensive alliance and wait for Russia to attack? But what he stated was basically that if they did come under attack, they want to invest in long-range capabilities to launch a preemptive strike onto Russia immediately if they are attacked in any kind of way. So that's some very big news as well. So I'm going to start diving into this and showing you guys this information. There's a lot of information to cover here. So this is on the New York Post. Top NATO military chair warns business leaders to prepare for wartime scenario. This was just coming out just yesterday, November 25th, 2024. It says right here, the chair of NATO's military committee warned business leaders to prepare for a wartime scenario and bring their production lines back home rather than relying on China or Russia to avoid blackmail or sabotage, as former and future U.S. President Donald Trump has vowed to restore his America First agenda. Speaking at an event Monday for the European Policy Center think tank, Dutch Admiral Rob Bauer said instability in global politics could leave businesses at the mercy of foreign governments, especially if a war were to break out. Businesses need to be prepared for a wartime scenario and adjust their production and distribution lines accordingly, Bauer said, because while it may be the military who wins battles, it's the economies that win wars. Okay, so just imagine too, if all these supplies got cut off to many nations that require them, could that make a lot of economies suffer? Yeah, for sure, it definitely could. So I want to show you guys some other information also on X here. We're going to kind of bounce back and forth. I have some articles to go over and some information on X, but I also have a video that I want to show you guys as well. This is from Real News No BS. It says, underreported, a top NATO military official has said that businesses can prepare for a wartime scenario by securing their production and distribution lines to reduce reliance on adversarial nations like Russia and China. Speaking at a forum in Europe, Dutch Admiral Rob Bauer, chair of NATO's military committee, said, if we can make sure that all crucial services and goods can be delivered no matter what, then that is a key part of our deterrence. Okay, so he's definitely talking about being self-reliant, right? Not relying on other countries to provide goods for your nation. We definitely have seen the results of that with this war between Russia and Ukraine and the major decoupling between NATO and Russia and the growing divide. So it says here, highlighting vulnerabilities, he stated, we thought we had a deal with Gazprom, Russian oil company, but we actually had a deal with Mr. Putin. And the same goes with Chinese-owned infrastructure and goods. We actually have a deal with Chinese President Xi Jinping. He warned of strategic risk from Western dependence on Chinese rare earth materials and pharmaceuticals, saying, we are naive if we think the Communist Party will never use that power. Other takeaway, Businesses need to be prepared for a wartime scenario and adjust their production and distribution lines accordingly, because while it may be the military who wins battles, it's the economies that win wars. So that's just very scary to think about, right? It's basically saying that they need to start turning Europe into a wartime economy because a major war between NATO and Russia is about to break out. That's kind of how I interpret that. Let me know what you think down below. Admiral Bauer said 90% of the chemical ingredients for sedatives, antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, and low blood pressure medications for the world come from China. Roughly 80% of rare earth materials imported from to the U.S. come from China. So we have a 2-minute clip, of him speaking at this conference. So go ahead and take a look at what he has to say here.
Business leaders in Europe and America need to realize that the commercial decisions they make have strategic consequences for the security of their nation. Businesses need to be prepared for a wartime scenario and adjust their production and distribution lines accordingly. Because while it may be the military who wins battles, it's the economies that win wars. Over the past 2.5 years, I've been going around boardrooms, finance conferences, and even philanthropic institutions in Europe and America to persuade people to think about 2 questions. One, is my company or organization ready for war? And 2, what can my company or organization do to prevent war? Now, that last question might surprise some people. But if we can make sure that all crucial services and goods can be delivered no matter what, then that is a key part of our deterrence. Deterrence is much wider than the military alone. When it comes to great power competition, all instruments of power can and will be used. We're seeing that with the growing number of sabotage acts, and Europe has seen that with energy supply. We thought we had a deal with Gazprom, but we actually had a deal with Mr. Putin. And the same goes for Chinese-owned infrastructure and goods. We actually have a deal with Xi. 60% of all rare earth materials are produced in China, and 90% is processed in China. 90% of the chemical ingredients for sedatives, antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, and low blood pressure medicines come from China. We are naive if we think the Communist Party will never use that power.
All right, so that's kind of scary to think about, right? Imagine if a war did break out and China were to all of a sudden cut off pharmaceuticals, rare earth materials that go over to Europe or maybe the United States. This could be really bad for many people around the world. So he's definitely worrying about this, about blackmail or sabotage coming from this. And we obviously have been seeing reports of sabotage potentially from the Russians or maybe somebody else inside of Europe. There's been lots of reports about that. So clearly they appear to be worried about that. And I wanted to show you that. So I also want to talk about this other story now that's discussing preemptive strikes inside of Russia. So I did find this one report. Now, there's not very many mainstream news that's covering this, but apparently this is something that was discussed while he was speaking at this event yesterday as well. Okay, this is from Eurasia Daily. NATO is discussing the possibility of preemptive strikes against Russia, according to Bauer. This came out yesterday as well, November 25th, 2024. It says here, NATO's discussing the possibility of preemptive precision strikes on the territory of Russia in the event of an armed conflict with the alliance countries. This was stated at the conference in Brussels by the head of the military committee of the bloc, Admiral Rob Bauer. And it says he called positive the fact that NATO has changed its attitude to the essence of the organization as a defense alliance, as well as the perception that it is necessary to sit and wait for us to be attacked and only then to react. Okay, so what this sounds like to me is that they are moving towards a proactive stance, potentially. Maybe they aren't there yet, but it looks like they may be moving in that direction to move away from being a defensive alliance to a proactive alliance, which is where these preemptive strikes could be coming from. And it says right here, quote, "It is more competent not to wait, but to hit launchers in Russia in case Russia attacks us. A combination of precision strikes is needed that will disable the systems that are used to attack us, and we must strike first," Bauer said, quoted by Bloomberg. Okay, if you notice there, key words, must strike first. Okay, so they're stating that if they have any indication that Russia may be launching an attack onto NATO. They want long-range capabilities to strike these launchers prior to being attacked. Okay, so again, this would mean that they would move towards being a proactive alliance, not defensive. As reported by EA Daily, the probability of a Russian attack on one of the NATO countries, including Poland or the Baltic states, is estimated to be low. This was stated in an interview with PAP by the head of Alliance's military committee, Rob Bauer. Okay, so now that you saw that information, we're also going to go over to X. I got a couple things over here to show you as well. So this is also a statement, a full statement here from Sprinter Family, head of the NATO Military Committee. We must launch preemptive high-precision strikes against Russia. We must now replenish our operational stocks of weapons that have been depleted. Also, we must invest in more in air defense, as well in systems for precision strikes. I am happy that a new discussion has been started in NATO and that the attitude towards the idea of we are a defensive alliance and that we will sit and wait for them to attack us and then we will react. It would be wiser not to wait, but to target the launch systems in Russia in case Russia attacks us. A combination of high precision strikes is necessary, which should disable the systems which would be used against us. And we must attack first, he said, is the head of the NATO Military Committee, Admiral Rob Bauer. So again, here's a picture of him. So that's supposedly something major that he stated. That's very, very big news. If NATO were to launch a preemptive strike onto Russia. Now, if they came under attack first and then, they launched their attack back into Russia, that would make sense. But the fact that NATO could be potentially moving forward to a proactive alliance and potentially launch preemptive strikes into Russia way in advance, this could be very big news. So also one more thing I want to show you guys from Target Reporter. NATO will invest in deep precision strike capabilities against Russia. Admiral Rob Bauer, he asked businesses in the West to prepare for war by securing production and supply lines. Putin has already warned the West of nuclear missile attacks. So for the most part, what he's going to talk about here is deep strike capability, precision strikes carried out inside of Russia. And he does state in here that if they were to come into it under attack, this is when they would launch the strike, not prior to coming under attack. It would come after. But take a look at this.
But it's smarter not only to do that, but also to attack the archer that is in Russia if Russia attacks us. So you need to have a combination of deep precision strike with which you can take out the weapon systems that are used to attack us. And of course, because we're a defensive alliance, we will have to take the first blow. So Russia will start the conflict because we are not going to attack Russia out of nothing. We will need more air defense. That's one of the lessons from Ukraine. And at the same time, we are going to invest in the deep precision strike.
Okay, so as you can see, two things that NATO is going to be doing is investing in air defense systems, because now think about this Oreshnik missile, the medium-range ballistic missile that Russia fired into Ukraine, into Dnipro just the other day. If they don't have an air defense system that has capability of shooting down these types of incoming missiles, well, then they got to start developing them now. And then also, aside from air defense, they're clearly claiming here that they're going to invest in deep strike precision strike missiles that can strike inside of Russian territory to take out these launchers prior to Russia even attacking, or maybe soon after. Okay, so definitely NATO's going to be making some big moves here very soon, and it's kind of scary to think about. Okay, I mean, obviously, could World War III start at any moment? It definitely could, but we have heard from Rob Bauer before in the past. He generally does speak like this a lot. I did do a report on him months back where he was warning the European nations to, start preparing for war, like, getting basic supplies that you need in your house, like batteries, food, water, things like that. And he was basically saying that in the future that it may not be as bright of a future as we might think, that potentially there's going to be a major war breaking out between Russia and NATO. So yeah, just a huge report that I wanted to share with you guys today. And I hope you did get something out of this. If you did, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.